Hi, I'm Ann from the Lawrence branch of Mercer County Library, and today I'm going to talk about the poet Charles Bukowski. I decided to talk about him because when I was looking in Amazon for spoken poetry records, his name just kept coming up again and again. Many audio records, many books of poems and books of prose. So this guy is extremely popular. And it is said in unofficial bookstore records that shoplifters favor Bukowski over any other writer. So he was born in 1920 in Germany. His father had been an American soldier over there in the occupation after World War I. He married there and brought Charles over when he was 3 years old. His paternal grandfather already lived here in California. So his father worked in construction and carpentry. And I'm going to start off just by reading a poem. He's known as an outsider, as a rough guy, as a vulgar guy. So he didn't really receive much respect in his lifetime. But he was and is very popular. So this poem is called Fingernails, Nostrils, Shoelaces. The gas line is leaking. The bird is out of the cage. The skyline is dotted with vultures. Benny got off the stuff, and Betty got a job as a waitress. The chimney sweep was quite delicate and giggled up through the suit. I walked miles through the city and saw nothing as a giant claw ate at my stomach, and the inside of my head felt airy, as if it were to go mad. It's not so much that nothing means anything, but more than that, it keeps meaning nothing. There's no release, just gurus and self-appointed gods and hucksters, stupid intellectuals. The more people say, the less there is to say. Even the best books are dry sawdust to the brain. I watch the boxing matches and take notes on futility. The gate springs open again, and there are the beautiful silks riding against the sky. Such a sadness. Everything trying to break through into blossom. Every day should be a miracle instead of a machination. Okay, he talked about racing in there, the silks, the beautiful silks, so he was a gambler also. He did go to college for 2 years, but then he decided to leave and go to New York City to try and become a writer. He worked at a lot of different jobs, warehouse person, gas station attendant. The longest job he had was as a post office clerk in Los Angeles. And he started writing. He wasn't very successful. He did get 2 poems published in small journals. And in 1946, he decided to give up writing and start drinking. So for 10 years he wrote nothing, but he steadily drank away. And then finally he had a problem that almost killed him. I think it was with his liver from drinking. So he decided to, after that, when he came out of the hospital, he decided to take up poetry again and reduce the drinking. So after that he was more successful, and in 1959 he published his first book of poetry. So here's a short poem by him called This Kind of Fire. Sometimes I think the gods deliberately keep pushing me into the fire just to hear me yelp a few good lines. They just aren't going to let me retire, silk-scarf about neck, giving lectures at Yale. The gods need me to entertain them. They must be terribly bored with all the others, and I am too. And now my cigarette lighter has gone dry. I sit here, hopelessly flicking it. This kind of fire they can't give me. And as you see, he's kind of cynical and is known for that. He did start to succeed as a writer, and this is a poem about the advice he gives to writers, or people who want to be writers. If it doesn't come bursting out of you in spite of everything, don't do it. Unless it comes unasked out of your heart and your mind and your mouth and your gut, don't do it. If you have to sit for hours staring at your computer screen or hunched over your typewriter searching for words, don't do it. If you're doing it for money or fame, don't do it. If you're doing it because you want women in your bed, don't do it. If you have to sit there and rewrite it again and again, don't do it. If it's hard work just thinking about doing it, don't do it. If you're trying to write like somebody else, forget about it. If you have to wait for it to roar out of you, then wait patiently. If it never does roar out of you, do something else. If you first have to read it to your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your parents or to anybody at all, you're not ready. Don't be like so many writers. Don't be like so many thousands of people who call themselves writers. Don't be dull and boring and pretentious. Don't be consumed with self-love. The libraries of the world have yawned themselves to sleep over your kind. Don't add to that. Don't do it. Unless it comes out of your soul like a rocket, unless being still would drive you to madness or suicide or murder, don't do it. Unless the sun inside you is burning your gut, don't do it. When it is truly time, and if you have been chosen, it will do it by itself, and it will keep on doing it until you die, or it dies in you. There is no other way, and there never was. So, gradually, he was published in many journals. He was published by the Black Sparrow Press, and he was very loyal to them because they had given him his first chances. He did write novels as well as poetry, but he's mainly known for his poetry. And he died in 1993 of leukemia. So here's another poem by him called The Trashmen. Here they come, these guys, gray truck, radio playing, they're in a hurry, it's quite exciting. Shirt open, bellies hanging out, they rush out the trash bins, roll them onto the forklift, and then the truck grinds it upward with far too much sound. They had to fill out application forms to get these jobs. They are paying for homes and drive late model cars. They get drunk on Saturday night. Now in the Los Angeles sunshine, they run back and forth with their trash bins. Well, that trash goes somewhere. And they shout to each other, and they are all up in the truck driving west toward the sea. None of them know that I am alive. Rex Disposal Company. And the last one I'm going to read is called The Way It Is Now. I'll tell you, I've lived with some gorgeous women, and I was so bewitched by those beautiful creatures that my eyebrows twitched. But I'd rather drive to New York backwards than to live with any of them again. The next classic Stupidity will be the history of those fellows who inherit my female legacies. In their case, as in mine, they will find that madness is caused by not being often enough alone. So, sometimes he wasn't really a nice guy, but he wrote some funny poems, some interesting poems, some cynical poems, and you'll find a lot of them on the internet if you want to read more, or come into the library and we do have his books that you can check out.